On to the topic of discussion. We have twin topics today. Of course, talking about the budget. Of course, it's still very fresh. Yesterday, the budget was passed for second reading by the National Assembly. A very quick one that you say by the National Assembly responding to the president's appeal for them to be able to accelerate the passage and, of course, assign into law of that budget there. It was passed yesterday for second reading, and of course the committees will now begin to handle whatever things that's left for that budget now. But we'll look at some of the key parameters of that budget. Of course, before I go to my guests, there are quite a few of them. If you look at the total budget itself, is for 49.7 trillion naira there, and of course you see the like of defense taking the largest chunk of the budget there as well. Of course, the revenue projection 34.82 trillion naira there. Inflation rate target is at 15%. Crude oil projection of 202.06 million barrels per day, and of course exchange rate projection of 1,500 naira to the US dollar. Let me bring in my guest who joins me virtually from Lagos. Vincent Oshoma is a financial analyst and also a stockbroker. Good morning, Mr. Vincent.
Morning.
Yeah, always a pleasure having you. You've seen the budget, some of the key parameters of that budget. There's the key assumption there, the revenue projection, talking about the inflation rate target of 15%, which is very, very, ambitious. The oil production of 2.06 million barrels per day. Looking at our current position, we are doing between 1.53 million barrels per day. Is the government indeed trying to appease to the emotions of Nigeria by this, ambitious target?
Yes, good morning once again. Thanks for having me. It's quite ambitious when you look at those two parameters you mentioned, the inflation and also the oil production. We can say the government is trying to appeal to the emotions of Nigeria, but for me, I don't think it's something out of, because most budgets, especially for the revenue expectation, there is always is really too ambitious. And at the end of the day, what kind of comes out is not what is expected. So it's just for Nigerians to look and see how the government intends to achieve that. But it will be quite impressive. It will be good if they're able to achieve that. But when you look at the current inflation at 34.6, we understand that it's going to be next year, we expect inflation to trend down because we already we are coming from a high position. But for looking at it from 34 to 15, I think it's far out for them to. And also, when you look at the factors that are actually pushing the inflation, especially food inflation, yes, the government is focusing on insecurity, which is a major part that is contributing to the current food inflation. But looking at it, that if you solve the security problem, it's not going to be automatic, or it's not going to be immediately for farmers to return back to farms and also start producing. So the output of those measures is not going to show immediately in next year's budget. And I cannot really say, apart from the talk about trying to target food production, but not see policies that will actually help in increasing production in terms of food production outside the security, therefore, with respect to security. So in terms of bringing the inflation down to 15%, we need to see more of what the government intends to do to achieve that. Then oil production at with the target of 2 million barrels per day, when we are currently around the 1.4, 1.5 million barrels per day. And you continue to have the issues of oil theft. Yes, we know that there was a time Nigeria was at 2 million barrels per day, but we're also a time when we went below 1 million barrels per day. So I don't really know their plans in terms of how they intend to achieve that. Yes, there have been some deals to the extent of some Nigerian companies like Orlando, Seplat, and like Renaissance Consortium taking over some oil wells and intend to increase the production from those assets. But that maturing, we're seeing the fruits in 2025. I don't know how that's going to play out, but we're going to expect to see it in the shortest, nearest to longest future, but not 2025. So, but we'll see how it goes with the government.
Indeed. Let's also look at crude oil benchmark for the budget, $75 per barrel, when we are currently at $72 per barrel at the global oil price. Of course, there's also exchange rate, 1,500 naira. If you look at from last year budget, what we had was 800 naira. Are we making progress, Mr. Vincent? I mean, moving from 800 to 1,500 within 1 year.
Yeah, in terms of that, we will not say that there's progress. There are two ways to it, because one of the things that have given us this current exchange rate, there are two factors. When the government decides to float the exchange rates, and in terms of the management, a lot is to be desired in terms of how the government and the CBN has managed the exchange rate, because CBN has tried in all measures, but we know that CBN alone, without commensurate effort from the fiscal managers, cannot really help in stabilizing the exchange rate, because it has to do with process of demand and supply. So that's one of the things we have seen it move from where it was last year to where it currently is. And this target of 1,005 or 1,004, I think government is looking at average and what it intends to do managing it. So it's something that could be achieved, but it tells you where the government sees the currency for next year. Currently, we are around 1.6, 1,600, 1,700. So that means the government target is around 1,500. So it helps the Nigerians to look at what the government steps to achieve for next year. But the most important thing for exchange rate, I think most times Nigerians focus more on the amount. I think the most important thing for exchange rate for a country is the stability, not really the amount, because if people the volatility affects planning and affects projection. But when we know it's at a particular amount and it's stable, I think the way to plan and now see how the economy continues from there, grows from there. I think that's the most important thing for the exchange rate.
Talking still on the exchange rate, government is targeting foreign exchange inflows through portfolio investment in 2025. How sustainable is that? Is that a certain way, I mean, to boost the FX liquidity in the market, and indeed, which in turn may lead to the appreciation in the value of the naira?
Yeah, I think that has been one of the concerns for government effort with respect to stabilizing the exchange rate. Because when you look at when the dollar was floated, the focus was more on foreigners bringing in their dollar, and that's not really been achieved, apart from a period where we started seeing them coming in sometime this year. But because of the continued volatility in the foreign exchange market, I think focus more should be on other areas. One, in terms of increasing production, they're able to increase exports for us to be able to generate more foreign exchange. Then the issue of the importation. There is good that government can be able to increase importation as a result of the Dangote refinery coming on board, and also other refineries. That will cut a lot of the amount spent on the importation. But there are other things that also we need to focus on, so that we're able to reduce our importation, to be able to cut this demand for forex. I think that will help in achieving stability in the foreign exchange market. And until you have stability in the foreign exchange market, the foreigners will not have that confidence of looking at bringing in their money into Nigeria. Because in terms of looking at the asset that you normally expect for the portfolio investors, there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of assets that they need to invest in. But when you look at the volatility in the exchange market, that's what is making them to sit in the stand. And also, you have also seen their environment being tough for business. A lot of companies have left Nigeria. We have seen the divestment of foreign companies leaving Nigeria, and that's how to do with the environment, the tough economic environment they have to grapple with. I think if government continue to also look at those areas, to be able to keep companies in Nigeria and attract more. Because when you are talking about bringing in companies and people, others are leaving, I think it says a lot, makes those that are looking at coming in to be concerned.
Indeed.
So
Mr. Vincent,
rather than just focusing on bringing income, you also need to do a lot of things to be able to stabilize the system.
Indeed, Mr. Vincent. Still staying on the FX, I want to put you on a spot now. There have been a debate about the fair value of Naira. As some people say it's below 1,000, some say it's around 1,100. To you, what is the fair value of Naira against the US dollar and other major currencies of the world?
I think various analysts various views, I think the naira is expected to trade around 1,002, 1,003 based on both foreign analysts and local analysts. But when you now look at other factors, I think that is why we continue to see this volatility. But I think when we are able to have some level of stability, yeah, I think, and the government effort starts yielding fruits, I think we should be able to see it around those levels, because there are a lot of things that can be done to be able to stabilize, and that has to do with increasing export and also reducing importation.
Indeed. Mr. Vincent, let's quickly talk about the capital market before I let you go. It's been, a week of bullish run there on NGF. See the like of Aradel making a very strong comeback there after that deal there. Talk to us about how investors are taking this positive performance on NGS.
Yes, it has been a bullish performance, positive performance for the market. You know, we are at the end of the year. We expect to see the Santa Claus rally, and also see some investors rebalancing their portfolio, and also people taking position ahead of the earnings season next year. So it's expected, and looking at the performance of some companies, especially those in the banking sector, a lot of persons expect them to do well at the end of the year, and also looking at what is happening in that sector, a lot of companies like Aradel, the deal, and you also talk about the Seplat deal, also the Oando deal. It has actually affected that sector, and people are expecting more from them in terms of their performance as they continue to settle down and start exploiting this deal that they have been able to consummate. Also, looking at some other sectors like the insurance sector, with the planned reforms in the sector, people are also looking at that sector. We have seen from the report saw that the insurance index is one of the best performing index so far. So I think those are some of the things that have been affecting the market. And for us in the capital market, it's a good thing. We want to see things more positive reaction to the market, especially for those companies.
Okay, before I let you go, what is the current market direction, and which pattern are we likely to going to see today? Are we going to maintain the status quo, talking about the market continuing northward? Are we going to see a different pattern today?
I expect the market to see rally, because we're going to see people take position. Though for some companies, we'll see some profit taking, like people, like you mentioned, those that entered Aradel at 400 and 300, just around 400. Some of them start looking at taking profit out from other companies, but there's still a lot of opportunities, and we expect the rally to be sustained.
All right, Vincent Oshoma, financial analyst, stockbroker. I must thank you for your time on Business Daily today. We appreciate your contributions.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Vincent Oshoma there, talking to us all the way from Lagos there. We're going a very quick break now. When we come back, we'll look at bread, a very major delicacy that is almost on everybody's table in Nigeria and indeed around the world. We'll look at that topic and, of course, the challenges that they have been facing since the inflationary pressure began. Don't go away.